You're speaking in terms of mastery because this entire time you've been talking to your ideal buyer, like the people that are the buyers in this audience right now. It's resonated with you because Patty's developed language and has very clear understanding about who it is that she can serve and really make an impact on their lives and the world at whole because of the way that they show up at their lives differently because of you do that. So talk a little bit about the importance of narrowing your focus and getting really clear on who it is that you serve.
A lot of times when you have a small business, and a small business is anything under, well, technically anything under 50 million in annual revenue, but most of the companies that I work are solopreneurs or they have a small staff, sometimes contractors, sometimes employees, but usually between, 3 and 15 employees. So these are small companies. They don't really want to get bigger. They want to be more profitable. They also want their revenue to be steady and predictable. And when you price for value, that is much easier to achieve than when you're pricing either hourly or you're pricing at a set rate, but it's too low. It's artificially low. And that makes it very difficult to be profitable. So narrow your focus is the problem we often struggle with is what I call the hope factor. And that is, think back to when you were first dating. And anyone who expressed interest in you, you thought they were, quote, the one. Right? We all did. That's the hope factor, is we think that every buyer who comes to us is an ideal buyer. And if they're not, we can change them. Just like we thought we could change that person we were dating back in high school. If they didn't fit everything that we thought was ideal. And because of that, and again, women fall into this trap very frequently. Because of that, when we have buyers who come to us, well, first, let me say there are several problems with that. One is if you only have buyers who come to you and you're not reaching out to potential buyers, then it's that difference between inbound and outbound, and you're really limiting who you're working with and how long you work with them and the lifetime value of your clients. So most of the people, when I start working with them, they only have an inbound effort. They're waiting for the phone to ring. Then we make the mistake of believing that every buyer is an ideal buyer. And if there are red flags, warnings, we either ignore them or we rationalize them away, just like we did with the kid in high school, right? Oh, that person's really not so bad. Yes, I know they stood me up for this date, but they couldn't help it. And you start making excuses, and you do that with your buyers as well. So again, awareness, being aware that you might not be working with the people who can benefit the most and who you love working with. So narrow your focus is all about defining your ideal buyer. And I'm going to qualify this, not your ideal client, because I believe that an ideal client does not happen by accident. You find ideal buyers that fit your criteria and you take them on a journey. And that's part of what I teach in my Painless Selling to Ideal Buyers program, which is a sales program that I think is such a good fit for women because it's more like matchmaking. So when you take your ideal buyer on this journey and they become a client, then when you're in the onboarding process and getting started with that client, you have the opportunity to help them understand how to become an ideal client. And it's an important distinction in my mind because so few people do that. And so I outline in the book why that's important and how to go about handling that differently, and really being careful about who you end up working with, how long you work with them, and because there may be red flags that show up after you've taken them as a client, like they call you after hours, even though you've made it clear that you have business hours and it's in your email signature and you send messages that help them understand that, and they're calling you at 9 o'clock at night. it's an opportunity for you to course correct and to help them understand you are welcome to call me, but I don't answer calls. So I would get back with you first thing in the morning. And if they continue doing it and being, in my opinion, disrespectful, that's a red flag. So then how long do you tolerate that? Right? And so all of those pieces is about narrowing your focus to work with the people who will benefit the most, who you love working with, and where you know you're making the biggest impact.